Hi, my name is Marco van Wieren and I am the developer of the WPO365 plugins for WordPress. Plugins that will help you integrate exciting features of the Microsoft Cloud in your WordPress website. You can use it, for example, to enable your users in Entra ID to use their Microsoft account to sign into the WordPress website. Or you can send WordPress emails from a Microsoft 365 mailbox. You can also use it to synchronize users from Entra ID to your WordPress website or dynamically assign roles based on the user's Entra ID group memberships or restrict access. You could also use it to embed content, for example in Microsoft 365 in SharePoint, or content a report from a Power BI service. In today's video, I will show you how you can embed a SharePoint library in a WordPress page. So let's get started. To embed a SharePoint library in my WordPress website, I do need the WPO365 login plugin installed. So I've already done that and I continue to the configuration of that plugin. When you embed a SharePoint library in your WordPress website, you must decide whether you want to do so for employees in your organization who sign in with their Entra ID account, or for customers that do not have an account in your tenant's Entra ID instance. I will start by demonstrating how I can embed a SharePoint library for employees in my organization. And therefore I would need to have already configured the single sign-on feature using the OpenID Connect flow. And there's a separate video where I demonstrate how you can configure exactly that. So that's already done, that's set up. You can see that I have a directory ID, application ID, a secret, configure my redirect URI, so users are basically able to use single sign-on, use their Entra ID account to sign into this website. And for this video, actually, I will also assume that my WordPress website is for a closed user group. Basically, it's for the employees of my organization. You could say it's an intranet. And I will double check that. I will go to roles and access. And here, as an authentication scenario, I will select intranet. By selecting intranet, I will basically force all users that are trying to access this website to sign in with their Microsoft account. Let's save this configuration and let's now start with the embedding of a SharePoint library in WordPress. And for that, I would need to go to the Microsoft 365 apps page. And when I go there for the first time with a freshly configured WPO365 plugin, I'm informed that the ability to embed Microsoft 365 content and Power BI content in WordPress is not yet enabled, so I would need to click the button to enable it. To embed a SharePoint library in a WordPress page or post, I can simply start by adding this app and start with the configuration of the app that will allow me to display the contents of a SharePoint library. So clicking add will basically open the configuration screen, but in this case I get an error message. I'm told that delegated permissions for sites read all basically are not granted. So I would need to basically first of all remove this error, and probably there's something that I would need to add, a permission that I would need to add in Entra ID for this specific app registration. So let's go back to the single sign-on tab. And let's here scroll down, and here I'll find the View in Entra portal link for the app registration in Entra. So let's click that link. This will open the entra.microsoft.com portal, and it will immediately take me to the registered application. So that's kind of convenient. And here I could go to the API permissions page, and here I can click to add a permission. I would like to add a Microsoft Graph permission, a delegated permission for sites read all. I can expand that and I find the permission that I would need to add, and I click to add the permission and I click to grant admin consent. if you can't click admin consent here because it's grayed out, for example, it means that you don't have sufficient permissions and you would need to ask a global administrator for your tenant to click this link instead. So I have added the site read all permission. So I could now return to my website, but there is one more important thing. To configure this, you yourself as an administrator would need to sign in with SSO so that for the rest of the configuration, the plugin is able to get also on your behalf the necessary access to Microsoft Graph, so it can help you configure the plugin. Or let's log out and let's sign in with Microsoft ourselves. And let's continue to the dashboard, back to the configuration pages. Let's go back to the Microsoft 365 apps page. And here's our app. Let's open the configuration screen of our app. And I am not seeing any error being reported anymore, so I have to assume that the permissions that I gave and that I granted were sufficient. So let's have a quick look. I can see that some configuration options are disabled and they would require a premium version. WPO365 apps or the integrate plugin are the premium plugins that would help you with obtaining access to those premium functions. So I can give a friendly name. So let's say I want to embed my Contoso library here. So Contoso library, let's embed that. And what you can also see here is that sometimes this close button grays out and there is like a spinner, and that's the autosave function of my configuration. So sometimes you need to wait until your configuration is saved and you can see here when it was saved last. There's an option here to allow anonymous users to interact with this app, and checking this option would basically allow you to embed a library for customers, as I explained in the beginning, but it's grayed out and it's a premium feature. As I said before, I'm embedding right now for employees of my organization, employees that sign in with their Entra ID account. What follows are, basically two blocks of information. One about the permissions, which we've already granted, and if they would not have been detected, then obviously we would have seen the error that we saw before. And there's an information block about endpoints. The WPO365 plugin exposes a REST API. And by limiting access to that API, it's basically making sure that the API is only used for the integrations that you have configured. Well, it tells us that a couple of those endpoints, the sites and the drives endpoint, will be enabled for basically delegated access, which is great because that is what is needed to make the embedding of a specific SharePoint library working as expected. Next, I can search for the site where my library is located. In my case, that site is the Contoso site, and I can search for it, and I can then select from the search result the site where my library is located. And once I select one of the sites, I get a list of libraries found in that site. And for this demo, I would like to embed the documents library. The last option, to specify a library relative folder path, again is disabled. It's a premium option. So I leave that as it is, of course, at this moment. I can basically close the configuration and copy the shortcode. So I can now embed the shortcode in a page to test the integration. So let's create a new post. Let's say call it simply Contoso and add a shortcode element to that page and paste our shortcode. Let's publish that page and let's have a look at the results. And I can see that my library has loaded just fine. I see the folders and I see all the documents and elements, items that I expect to view. So embedding my SharePoint library in a WordPress post has worked as expected. Let's continue and have a look at some of the premium features. For that, I have installed the Microsoft 365 Apps Premium plugin. You can purchase this from our website when you go to plugins, add-ons, and here you can scroll down and there is the Microsoft 365 Apps Premium plugin to get started with. So let's return to WordPress and let's return to the Microsoft 365 Apps configuration page. Let's have a look at our app that we created to embed our Contoso library on our WordPress page. And well, I can have a quick look at the configuration page, and here I can see already that some of the premium options are now unlocked. To allow anonymous users to interact with this app is something that I will show in a little later. And also here I could say, well, I would like to give access to a folder instead of to the root of the library. So let's say that we take the general folder that we saw before. That seems to work, so I leave it as it is. This is saved already, so I close this panel and I can, instead of navigating to the post that I created, I can actually click to have a preview here whilst I'm editing it. And now I can see it looks different because now I see the content of the general folder. And here I can actually also interact with the content immediately, so I could click HR forms and see the documents that are in this form. I can also see the breadcrumb here, and I could also navigate back up. And here I have options to basically interact with the columns, define different columns that I would like to display, and I refer to the tutorial, the documentation, if you wish to update some of the columns that are shown and will appear in the app. So I close that. I can also define different translations for some of the mainly error messages that users may encounter. So let's also close that. And then now it's getting more interesting, I would almost say. I can define a different template. By default, you'll get a list that you just see now. But I could also switch to a raw HTML table. Let's try that and let's see what that does. You can already see here some things have changed, and I can close this. And this now presents me with a view that is a simple HTML table. Well, it's not really that simple because it does allow you to resize the columns. It does headering. It has an icons column, etc. But it's more flexible if you wish to apply your own design. And last but not least, I have an option to display the results as cards. And when I do, I can also configure the number of cards that should be visible depending on the breakpoints. So I could say I can show a few more cards, making them a bit smaller, of course, depending on the width of the client. Well, I personally like big cards, so I change that back. And wait until that is saved. And I have another option, which was already checked, but I can uncheck it, but I can also check it again. And if I check this option, and if I then return, for example, to my HR policies folder, then I notice that I have a little checkbox on each of the cards in edit mode. And if I check that, I'm basically selecting these 4 documents to be shown. The rest won't be shown. So let's leave it like this. And now I would need to close the preview and would need to return to the post that I created where I can basically see my document library. And if I now click view, I expect to see those 4 documents displayed as cards, which is indeed working as expected. I have returned to the preview of my app and would like to explore some of the other premium options. And the first one is to enable search for documents in the library. So I check the option, and what I see is that I now have the possibility to search. So let's search for camera and click the search button. I can see the keyword that I searched for, and results are now nicely being displayed here at the bottom. I'm still looking at the results with cards with the option enabled for handpicking documents. So let's actually remove that, and let's switch back to the default, to the list view. And when that's saved, close that. My search box, of course, remains. So if I now repeat the search for camera, I just get a list with the same results. So it's up to you, of course, which display template you would select. So let's remove the search. It will reset basically to the basic view of the library. And let's continue with the second option that I would like to show. And that is the upload of documents. So I'll check that option as well. And I get another, basically control at the top of my library, which says upload file and choose a file. So I click the choose a file button and I will select an image that I find on my desktop, open it, and I will click upload to upload the image. But this time I get an error. The error is informing me that I don't have sufficient permissions to also write to the library. Currently, I was able to read from the library and to display the results, but now I'm trying to upload a file. So I need to update my permissions. So let's do that. I remove the error and I go to the single sign-on page. And here I have a link to view my registered application in Entra portal. That's just placed with the application ID. So let's click that. And let's continue to the API permissions page of my app registration in Entra. And here I would need to add a permission to read and write to all the sites. So I click the Add a Permission button. I click Microsoft Graph, Delegate Permissions, because it's me who's trying to upload a file, and I search for sites, read, write, all. There it is. I add the permission and I grant consent as a global administrator. So that's great. I've added the permission. I return now to my WordPress website. And here I will go to the integration page. I scroll all the way down and I have here a button to basically delete all the cached tokens. And since we changed permissions, I'm just wanting to make sure that I delete all existing tokens, and I will sign out and sign back in with Microsoft so that my account, that's also used for testing and previewing, does have the right permissions, the new permissions that I assigned. So let's return to the Microsoft 365 apps page. And let's select again the preview of the app. And let's try again whether I'm now able to upload a file. Making a tutorial, open the file and click to upload the file. The upload is completed, the library is reloaded, and when I scroll down, I can see that the file has just now been uploaded. So that worked as expected. The next premium option that I would like to demonstrate is the possibility of embedding a SharePoint library for your customers. To demonstrate that, I will leave the preview mode and instead will return to configure the app. And here I have an option to allow anonymous users, well, users that at least did not sign in with their Microsoft account, to interact with this app, basically meaning that they can view the document library in a WordPress page when embedded. So let's check the option. And when I do, I can see that the application permission for site selected has not been granted. There's an error because already now the app would like to check certain prerequisites and it noticed that a permission is missing. The first thing that I need to do is to add that permission. It's an application permission for sites selected. So remove the error and let's go to our Entra portal. I do that by clicking the View in Entra portal link that I find with my application ID. and this will open the registered application in Entra. And here I can continue to the API permissions page. And here I can click to add a new permission. For Microsoft Graph, but this time an application permission, and it needs to be sites selected. So there it is, and I will add that permission. And again, I will grant consent as a global administrator to use that permission. I will return to my WordPress website and make sure that I clear all cached tokens. And when I do that, I also need to log in myself again, because also my token would otherwise be missing. So I would go to the dashboard again of WPO365 and continue to the Microsoft 365 apps page and to the configuration of the app. So let's try again to check the option to allow anonymous access. And this time it's saved successfully. What I can see next is that I have a link to enable application access next to the selected Contoso site. And I need to click this because my application that I registered in Entra now needs access to the site collection. It's no longer me as a user who gets delegated access to the site collection. It's instead the application that we need to grant access. And that means that we need to assign on the one hand side the site's selected application type permission. But we then also need to reconfigure the site collection and tell the site collection that the registered application with this ID needs to have access to the website. And in this case, it will be given read access. So I will try and click that link. And when I do, I get another error. It says that I would need to add site's full control all to my app registration as well. This is temporarily. I can remove it once I have clicked the link. So let's do that. Let's remove the error. Let's return to my Entra portal. I still have that open and I click to add another permission. Microsoft Graph application permissions. This time I'm looking for site's full control. I select it and add that permission. And again, click the grant admin consent to grant consent as a global administrator. I return to WordPress. I go to my integration page. Again, clear all the tokens. Again, sign in as well myself with Microsoft. And one more time, return to the Microsoft 365 apps page, where I click to configure my app, and I will try and click the link to enable application level access again. Well, and this time it worked. I get an OK. So that's great. At this point in time, I believe that I have reconfigured the app so that it will allow users who did not sign in with Microsoft to view my SharePoint library. So let's have a look. To test whether a user who did not sign in with Microsoft can actually view the library, I will first reconfigure my website, because at the beginning of this video on the roles of access page, I configured this website as an intranet, requiring all users to sign in with their Microsoft account. I will now undo that and change that back to internet. And I will save the updated configuration. So if I now would navigate to my website as a guest, I would expect that my library is loaded. But it says here, please sign in before using this API. What would that mean? So let's have a quick look. Let's return to my administrator view. Basically what this means is that on the integration page, there is a section to configure the integration for the Microsoft 365 apps. And here I can see that I've enabled the REST API. Well, actually, when I configure an app, this is done automatically in the background for you. But I can also see that access to the API requires a user to be signed in. I can also say that I would allow anonymous access. So let's test that for the moment and let's save the configuration. Let's return to my other window where I'm browsing as a guest. And let's refresh the page and see what happens. Now I can see that I can actually view the library, but I'm not logged in. The other option would be, if I return to the administrator view and return to the integration page, is that my user would need to sign in, well, at least as a WordPress user. So users must be signed in. So select that option. For testing purposes, let's close this and let's switch back to the window where I'm browsing as a guest. Let's refresh the page. And now it would again give me the error that I would need to sign in. So let's sign in. Let's go to the login page. And let's say that I can log in as test user. I log in as a WordPress only user with WordPress local credentials. And I can actually all see here that the page is now loading indeed as expected. By now, I have reached the end of this tutorial, and I hope that you've been able to implement your favorite SharePoint library in your WordPress website. If not, or if you have any questions, then please click the question mark here at the right bottom of the screen. This will take you immediately to the contact form of the website, where you can reach us 24 hours a day. And before I go, two more things. Make sure to visit our website at WPO365.com and learn all about the other exciting features. Single sign-on, sending an email from a Microsoft 365 mailbox, synchronization of users, dynamically assigning user roles based on Entra ID groups, integration with customer systems such as Entra, External ID and Azure AD B2C, and of course other Microsoft 365 apps and the integration of Power BI. And last but not least, make sure to leave a review in the WordPress plugins directory. Simply look us up or click the link on the WPO365 configuration pages. It's a little effort to tell others to share about your experience with the WPO365 plugins, and it's much appreciated. Thank you very much.